call this meeting to order. Can I get a motion, please, that the agenda for the December 11th, 2018 special meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Chouinard will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, to move in camera to discuss the collective agreement under FOIPAC Section 17.1 and Section 24.1A and C? Councillor Byer will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried. All right, everybody's back in. Can I get a motion, please, related to the item we just discussed in camera? Councillor.
I'd like to move that we accept the agreement as presented in council.
In camera?
In camera.
All right.
Yes, sorry.
Councillor Wilkinson makes a motion to accept the agreement as presented in camera. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. We're going to move on to item D. Questions from media and public regarding items from this council meeting. And I'll tell you, we can't tell you anything yet until we get ratification from our union partners, at which time we'll be able to release all the details. All right. Can I get a motion, please, for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Chouinard makes that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried.
Oh, I want to take.
I thought maybe somebody had done it. You were getting
Okay, I can't touch the ground. Okay. Committee people.
Okay, I'll make a block on it, so you can't see
And that's
that.
why we're
Right. All right. Do I have to bang again? No. Thank you. Can I call the committee of the whole meeting to order?
I mean, you don't have to, but that's like the best part of being the chair.
I would like to call the committee of the whole meeting for December 11th to order. Can I get a motion that the agenda for the December 11th, 2018 committee of the whole meeting be adopted with the change of the cancellation of the delegation? Councillor Chouinard. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the November 27th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted as presented?
Make it so.
Councillor Bevan, all those in favor? Motion carried. All right, moving down to reports from staff, the Executive Office, F1.1, Alberta Forest Productions request for letter of support. Is this, Mr. Jericho, you'll be speaking
Yeah, thank
to
you.
this?
I don't have anything to add other than what's in the request from the Alberta Forest Products Association. Just looking for some feedback from council as to whether or not this is an action they would like administration to undertake on council's behalf.
No? Mayor Sahara.
Yes, through the chair. This resolution was there was a resolution by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, as you can see in the materials here. That was actually something put forward by the Hinton Chamber of Commerce, and I understand it received unanimous support from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. So I would certainly would want us to support this, as we've been dealing with the Mountain Pine Beetle Committee with Hinton, and we are trying to apply pressure to the federal government to support the province's efforts in fighting this. We are the battleground for this before it heads further east, which could cost the forestry industry untold amount of money over the next decade. So,
Councillor Chouinard.
I would also speak in favor of it. I was at a meeting last night and we discussed it, and yes, it is moving into ours, so it's sort of Alberta as a whole, but Hinton is affected the most, so I believe we should support it as well. It's very important.
Councillor, did you have your hand up?
No.
Does anyone else want to speak to it? Do you need more from us?
No, I think that's with that feedback, we'll draft a letter for council's review prior to forwarding it on as per the request.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the Trans Mountain Tree Replanting Plan, and I believe this is.
Actually, I think you jumped over an item there.
Sorry, I
Chair.
did. The business engagement. So moving on to engineering and planning, the business engagement survey results. Mr. Verhage, I believe you're presenting this.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, members of council. Anne Chambeau has been nice enough to condense the findings of the engagement survey into a presentation for us. This was undertaken leading by us, but also in concert with our chamber, as well as Community Futures and Alberta Labour. And several of the questions address things that we would seek information on from our business sector, as well as Alberta Labour and the Community Futures West Yellowhead. Our intention was to get input from local business about the town's direction on several policy issues for economic development in the community, and get some ideas about where they saw some of the priorities we should be focusing on to start to move forward. In looking at it, one of our questions was, how can we most effectively engage you to give us, the town, or our stakeholders information on changing bylaws, policies, and economic strategies? Definitely, we've seen that they've moved away from letter mail, which is traditional, and then wanting to focus more on email lists as well as surveys. And so looking at the number of emails we're able to get, we're hoping that at some point we'll be trying to meld our business licensing with getting more email contacts, and then being able to keep a robust connection with our business sector that way as we continue on. We also asked, how can we best provide you with information? Again, they did like social media, our app, but again, they prefer getting direct contact, not over mail, but actually getting it from email. So that's again something strategically we will want to look towards going to get for information. In looking at one of the questions we had was with regards to marketing Edson, noting that our residential sector ends up being benefited by a strong, robust business sector where we're drawing in new workers and having new businesses creating positions. They did see some value in seeing online marketing and some targeted advertising. Our chamber involvement was a 50-50 kind of response, compared to nearly all of them saying online marketing is the way to go, and then perhaps highway signage. So we have some ideas we're working on internally with how we can best market Edson. Again, probably focusing more on marketing Edson to businesses and new communities, and then other things like Hillendale will kind of help that transition for us. In looking at areas of focus, they really did say they wanted us to look at all of our policies from that business-friendly town perspective. Although we do offer a great deal of advantage for beautification and family-friendly qualities, which we'll be putting into any type of marketing or messaging we do, definitely our policy and our messaging will be going towards that business-friendly town, as that was definitely where business saw us going for the most bang for our buck. The response were asked to pick one or more selections as to what they thought would probably be the best focus for our next 2-3 years, and definitely this next year. They did say that core business revitalization, a lot of people selected multiple options, but the highest cohort by a lot was looking at that core business revitalization, what kind of strategies we can put towards seeing that undertaken, and then of course defining what we consider our core business area. They did see the need for us to change our land use bylaws, come up with simpler districts, or standardizing some of our industrial and commercial standards. There was, of course, other options such as offsite development levies and policies, industrial land development strategies, and looking at an option that we've been toying with Alberta Transportation, looking at a management piece that got the lowest priority with regards to where they saw the most value. Then looking at priorities for focusing our planning policy reviews. These are the actual numbers that were shown earlier. So as you can see, we've got kind of a slant. There's one piece here where you kind of see that there is good support in the middle for quite a few of these. So we ended up going off of the higher numbers. And this is just another diagram showing where they see us moving with our changes. Now the nice thing is that the two highest ones, being the land use bylaw and core business revitalization, those two end up being linked, because in order for us to see our core areas become a little more encouraged for development, being opened up, changing how we deal with parking, beautification, things like that, it all kind of hinges on that middle piece of the land use bylaw as well. The interest in receiving information from the town on policies. We didn't have, everyone who responded was interested in being discussed with on our policies. Again, if we can start to build that connection at that email level or build better surveys or ways to get responses on it, because this did not have an immense number of surveys, even though we did go to a very large swath of businesses. That'll probably help us with getting responses and making sure that we are engaged when we're bringing policies back to council for decisions. Then we ended up switching a lot of the survey over towards how we can best support businesses from that labor perspective. And so with that, there was a big interest on employee attraction and retention, as well as understanding work-life balance, mental health, workplace health, and engaging our workforce. I've sent this off to Alberta Labour, who is actively looking at holding several education sessions in concert with us and our partners in Edson, Hinton, and surrounding areas. And so they will be modeling some of their future engagement sessions and education sessions through the college with this. There was a large response. People saying they want to do this in person. However, the costs, if we don't have a high attendance, which has been historically one of our problems, is actual attendance at those sessions. Kind of doesn't follow with what people wanted. So cost-wise, we can do webinars quite easily, and we can get Alberta Labour to invest into webinars and having us being able to mod in and even be able to communicate with those presenters. They did want to see in person, so we'll have to work with them and see what those are able to do for us for bringing in presenters, because it can be quite costly. Right now, those are planned on a quarterly basis. We did ask, do you have any ideas which you have not identified in the questions above? Most people did not respond to that question. There was stated comments about engaging schools and youth, focused groups for our commercial development, and then other responses such as more places for food, programs like Alberta Best, which is related to training for customer service. Read question 3, besides the chamber, I also like target advertising. So there's a few, they could put in anything they wanted to. So we had some people respond with various ideas. So with that, the response were asked if they were aware of our online business directory being maintained by the town. 60% were aware of it, with 41 saying that they weren't. Our goal will be, when we start to get the email advertisements or the emails, is making sure that they also allow us to put their contact information, so that when people go to our directory, they can accept that it's up to date, and they can actually contact those businesses directly, whether they're looking for work, whether they're looking for services, and then that'll become a big resource once we're clear that we can trust the information there is current. With regards to grading the town of Edson on its communications performance, response were asked to rate us between an A and an F. Most of the respondents believe that the town's, when you average it out, more about a C+. So 70% said we're getting a C or a B. So that puts us, at definitely a place where we can improve, but not a failing grade by far. So some interesting statistics to remember or out of the survey, because sometimes the percentages don't always give a full message. 73% of the response in question 1 indicated that email was the most effective way, but even then they did not provide us with their email address to contact them. Assuming all 37 response are Edson District Chamber of Commerce members, 26% of the members of the chamber actually responded to the survey that was sent out to them. I'll note that I had this sent out by Alberta Labour, sent out by the chamber, sent out by our own contacts, and sent out by West Yalehead. So I was hoping that we would see a 1 in front of that 37 response, but we had to call it at a certain point. 70% of the response believe the town is doing well in terms of communications with business, though of course I would note I think we have room to improve. And response voices are clear on addressing core business revitalization strategies, and so that will end up being one of our core pushes within the new year in the planning department. So, do you have any questions? We will be posting the report, which is attached to the report for this committee on our website, and we were going to present this to the chamber. However, they said that they didn't have time to vet it before presenting it to their members, so it's not on this next one, but they've received it, and we'll hopefully have that for them in the new year.
Thank you. Open it up. Councillor Wilkinson.
I have a question, but this was long before your time, but at one time we'd spoken about having highway signage about our lots in Hellendale, or highway signage on anything. I mean, we have so much traffic going through town, it's sort of a waste to not have things out there. And our sign is looking old already, like our, not the entrance sign, but the other sign that puts events on the billboard one, yeah. That probably that could be updated. And
Is this is that the one on the east side of the
east side.
overpass?
Well, and the one on the west is just as bad. Like, they're just old-looking signs already. And when you have so much traffic going through, you want someone to choose Edson to be their spot, don't you? And again, another thing, when you said earlier, there's 37, 26 were online and 11 were not online, so, of the respondents. So again, I keep harping on about this, that not everyone is online, not everyone has a phone, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know why the 11 would respond on paper, but there's still a need for that. Okay, finish my questions, thank you.
Councillor Schnurr.
I also am very disappointed with the results, because I believe Community Futures, BSN, one of the other groups, can't remember what it was, a few years ago went around and did a similar study. And they had over 300 respondents. So a lot of times, I believe, when you're doing these surveys, I get them called to my office, it's a matter of who do we direct the question to. Because there would be people in different companies, so if it comes to, let's say, the manager at Min, it may not be the right person. So I do like the fact that we did it, but maybe in the future we could have, and I mean, it costs money, have a person going around, because last time someone physically phoned me and set up an appointment with the right person. So it's, I do, when you said it's the cost, if you physically someone going around, so maybe we could look at that. And with our interns, or we're looking at, oh God, I can't remember the word, what's the junior council? The youth council, something like that, maybe something we can engage them, would give them experience of contacting people. So using those two, as well as Alberta Labor, and then like Community Futures, the chamber, where they bring in students and part-time people, we can utilize some of those people to maybe put us in contact with the right people, because last time I had several phone calls and emails and wanted to set up a physical appointment, and maybe that gave them better results.
And Madam Chair, through Councillor Schmidt, I agree with you that engagement ends up being, it's a process, it's not an event. So, you know, sometimes there's little pieces like this survey that give us leads to go to, and I know that we heard great responses from the chamber about, I think it was like the downtown walks. And so there's I think everyone receives information or gives information in a different way.
Yes.
So yeah, no, it's something that we need to build on, but always trying to find the most efficient way we can.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Sorensen.
Great report. I'm glad we undertook this, and there's a lot of really important information in this report. I do have a couple comments. I was surprised that business-friendly town was more important than one-time events, especially since we lost the recent slow pitch tournament and the massive amount of tourists that brought to town. I thought that would be top on their priority, and it wasn't, so that's good information to know. I do believe that that we should be developing the email list, and that's, in my opinion, that should be top priority for development planning, is building an email list of people that have opted in, and perhaps right on our development permit form we can have an opt-in for email surveys, stressing that we won't ask them for any kind of promotion or anything other than surveys. And I do think on the next survey, perhaps we could ask how many employees they employ and how many clients or customers they have, because it could be that these 37 people employ or serve over 50% of our population. So this could be a very valuable survey if we knew how much of the population it was representing.
And Madam Chairman, through Councillor Sorensen, what I can say is we did not collect that data, but I do know that in person I collected surveys from Representative Weyerhaeuser and also someone who's a home-based business owner. So we had quite a span, but again, with only 37, we'd probably see a big difference in how much weight they pull for what they want to see.
Councillor Beyer.
Through the chair to Mr. Bahagi. So I'm not a business person, but what are ways to be more business friendly? What's besides cutting the red tape, which everybody says? What are some examples, or did they list any?
They did not go into it specifically. However, what that generally provides as a direction would be, Madam Chair, sorry, Councillor. What that provides is you'd want to make sure that your processes are as timely and as simple as possible. You want to make sure as much as you can, you make it one window kind of practice, or you put together the services so that they're more easily achieved. It does mean that we have to start reviewing everything from what kind of securities do we take on one-off developments, what types of ways do we manage subdivision and development for our servicing agreements, to whether we make more uses permitted versus discretionary and kind of limit the amount of process they have to go through for an approval. Also, it means, having a good solid look at whether we're not doing things that we should be doing that people are asking for, and really taking a solid kind of self-analysis of, are we not doing something because we never have, or are we still doing things simply because we always have? And that's always part of a renewal process that government helpfully will always go through kind of cyclically. So we haven't reviewed our land use bylaw in 10 years. I can tell you right now that there are things in there that are probably an impediment, whether necessarily or unnecessarily, but they should be reviewed. So.
Thank you.
Councillor Sorensen, then Councillor Brevin.
Through the chair, with all due respect, I did hear one summary that you gave tonight that I was surprised to hear. You said that the question about the question on the form was, do these things interest you? And it says new land use bylaws or districts, and then you summarize it to mean simplified. So I just caution you that not necessarily simplified is what they intended for that one. It could be that they want brand new land use districts that we haven't thought of before. Thanks.
Councillor Brevin.
Through the chair, thank you. The Edson Business Visitation Study has been completed, now the second part, and it will be coming out right away, and I'll be getting a copy. I'll give it to you, and that you can take a look at it and study. Again, I heard here just the other day that another person wanting to do business in town is not going to come to town because, again, I've heard we're too restrictive. So I think that's something we have to look at. She didn't, they didn't say why. I asked them, can you let me know so we can let you guys know what they mean by too restrictive, whatever went on in that. So they're going to get back to me, and I'll definitely get back to you and let you know what they have to say on it if they get back to me on that. So I would have bet you that we would have got 40 people getting back to us. I would have lost a bet because you only got 37. So it does not surprise me at all on some of this and that. And I know the people I talk to also, they don't know that we have a business site. They don't know that we have a town of Edson app still. And then I keep telling people that. And it's been up there for a while. And I know we all keep pushing every time we talk to someone. We say, go here, go there. And they're surprised we have it. And I don't know how we get it out there. We've been trying. And it's not for lack of trying, because we have been trying. So I guess we have to just keep plugging along in that. So.
Mayor Sahara.
Well, thank you very much for the report through Madam Chair. Very disappointed with the results. I think this once again reaffirms that engagement is an issue, not only with the general public, but with the business community, who I would think would really want their voices heard on something like this. And it takes two to tango, and we're doing our part, so we need people to step up and do their part as well. The only way we can respond and reflect the needs of our business community and the community in general is if they do provide feedback when we provide these opportunities. I think we are doing an immense job in trying to create those mechanisms. There's rooms, of course, for improvement. Talking with Alberta Labour, they've hosted some workshops and events in town, and Edson is always a struggle. They get huge turnouts in Hinton. Look at the Chamber AGM. There were more councillors there than business people, and this is a challenge that I think we're going to have to fight through and just encourage people in the business community when we're asking these questions are important, because this helps inform decisions not only from an administrative point of view, from a policy point of view at this council table. And if they're not going to be able to provide that feedback and that input, don't go on the rant and rave and post complaints about it, because we are providing those mechanisms to make those changes. So hopefully we can build on that. When you have the chamber and you have Community Futures and you have the town of Edson all working in tandem trying to get something done, we only get 37 responses. It's very concerning to me. So is that a reflection of people just being generally happy with things? I don't know. It's hard to tell. You know, if that's the if people didn't respond to the budget survey and that's the response we're getting, and is that because they're happy? I don't know. It's hard to make those determinations. So thank you for that, and hopefully we work on some of these items, and maybe next time we'll get a better response.
Yeah, if I may, and I think this is just to partly reinforce the comment that Mr. Verhage made earlier, where engagement is not a point in time, but it's a process. I think one of the things we can do to strengthen the process is to ensure that when we do ask for feedback, that we just take it really, really seriously. I've been reflecting a lot on the feedback we got in terms of the budget survey, as well as the disappointing volume of responses. But I think in order to encourage responses, I think we need to take what we get and take it seriously and respond to it and do something with it, so that people can see that when we ask and they respond, that it actually impacts our processes and it impacts our decision making. And to me, that's one of the key ways that we as a body, ultimately led by council, can increase people's connection to those points, is when they see the surveys translating to policy decisions, translating to outcomes. And it's difficult at first when it's such a potentially small part of our business community and or our larger community, but keeping in mind that I think it's part of that process of driving better engagement is making sure that those responses are tangibly a part of our process will be one of the key elements in strengthening them in the future.
Thank you. I think that's a really good point. Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, just one more thought. Like, if you walk down our Main Street now, it's quite dismal, really, with the businesses that are shut. So is it worthwhile trying to have like a think tank and get the businesses together? Because obviously we have to think differently, right? We have to be futurists. Not everyone, a lot of people are doing online shopping. So somewhere we have to give something that's better than online shopping, obviously. So I would think if I was a business on Main Street, I would like to get together with my cohorts and try to figure out how we're going to revitalize it, because the way it stands now, I don't know how much of a future there is for some of the businesses, which is sad. So I don't know what the answer is. If the town needs to decide to do that, but somebody has to get working together to overcome this.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Schnurr?
Just in closing, like where we say the Chamber of Commerce and we compare to other towns, as I comment, the Chamber here in Edson has been trying hard and they're getting out there. So I would have to agree with some of the comments. We need to be happy with what we got. And I also agree, work with the numbers and then move forward, because even the other comments where people are saying maybe they are happy. So if people are happy, they usually don't comment. If they're unhappy, they comment severely. So maybe we'll have to look at that way. People are satisfied. That's why a lot of people respond and move forward.
Thank you. Just a quick question. With the directory, what does it currently have on it? Does it just have their phone number, or does it have their email, websites? What does it lead you to?
Madam Chairman, actually, I believe Steve probably is able to respond to it more than I do. What I have observed is that we do break it down by several different types of businesses. And then we have names, sometimes emails, definitely usually phone numbers. But
I think even on the app you can click on it and we'll bring you a map up of where the physical location of the business is. So it's pretty robust. But Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
Provide basically whatever they provide to us, we can put on there. Some people just give us a phone number, some people give us a website, but we can put all of that information on there. And one of the problems we have right now is we have too many categories, so it's a little harder to find things.
Okay.
So that's something that in the future we're going to work together and try to limit that a bit.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions before moving on? All right. Let's move on. Going on to engineering planning number 2 here, Trans Mountain Tree Replanting Plan. I believe this is you again, Mr. Verhage, right?
Madam Chairperson, We received, the last time this was presented, we were looking at the endorsement on some of our slightly expanded working spaces within the Trans Mountain pipelines right-of-way and where it crosses the town. We have already approved that over a year ago with regards to their general alignment and numerous workspaces. And as part of that negotiation, they were required to provide us with a tree management plan over our properties. And so they've provided us the tree management plan already, and that was prepared this summer. So we've provided it to you as requested for information. What I can do is, although it's not specifically mentioned in here, I did get written confirmation from their land manager that they are looking at 2 to 3 meter trees in the area behind Tiffin in this area, so they do have a higher standard of replacement. They have to, under this management plan, defer to our direction on the types of trees and the locations of the trees within the areas they're required to replace them. And they have before, just since the fielding of this report, also provided me, so I'll just put it up here for anecdotally, a draft that will be decided on by our community services Parks and Rec group as to how we want to see Vision Park fixed. As you can see, they are affecting several of our pitches, and so we'll need to discuss that with them. This is their draft initial replacement plan. Also, because they're removing this flock of trees right over top of their pipeline alignment, we're looking at a more gentle replacement that provides more aesthetic value, although of course that will still need to be approved by us. Also, there is a play structure here which we are going to be directing them to replace over to this picnic area that they've proposed to create for us outside of their right-of-way, so that it never needs to be an issue again. So again, this is a working piece because this is an ongoing relationship until they start breaking ground.
Great, thank you. Questions? No question. All right, thank you. Moving on. Moving on to community service, Repso Place bleacher heating update. Mr. Desidel.
Come on, Dan.
We appreciate that you guys coordinated for the meeting.
Can I go over and join them? We're in the flag.
Yeah, it was. You didn't even hear me.
Chairman, you're not speaking.
Good evening. So I'm sure those of you who've been to the arena in the past little while have noticed some minor issues with our heating system. The good news is that it's under repair. And as you can see from the package we've provided you, we've invested quite considerably in the past 2 years into fixes that the system has required. So by the end of the current plan for upgrades and fixing things that are broken or not working, we'll have invested about $14,000 into the system. Just as a point of not necessarily clarification, but coming from a place of knowledge as to what a system like that would cost if we were to replace it for brand new, you're looking anywhere from $42,000 to $50,000. So we're hopeful that these fixes that we've put together, or Dan has put together, will get us through to the point where we have a new facility, and God willing, we won't have to invest in it anymore, but who knows. Some of the pictures I've provided through Dan in the, that's attached to your package just kind of shows what we're faced with when we're dealing with the amount of components, the age of the components, the age of the system, and really what we're combating when you look at what's underneath the stands. I mean, those stands are very old. I'm sure those of you who've lived here for many, many years will know that they haven't changed all that much, if at all, since the late 60s. The cooling system is directly underneath the stands, so you have two components, one cooling and one heating, a meeting where the people sit. So it's a constant battle between the two of them, and it does take a while for the air to heat up and to warm up the seats and make things somewhat comfortable. So if you've been there the past week or so, the system is running on manual, which means we really don't have any control over it. It's just full on, and one end is scorching and one end is moderate. In the middle, it's kind of, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. But the good news is, oh, here it is. Way to go, buddy. Dan, do you want to talk about what those circled items are?
Sure. One is the motor. One is the actual control box. The one to the left, sorry, would be the control box. That's where all the magic's supposed to happen. Lots of ceramic parts, excuse me, electronic ignition, so we ignite our gas and it heats up the elements and it's supposed to blow them right through all the way in. A lot of the issue we've been having are the ceramic parts are old and worn out. So we did replace them all summer. Apparently this one must have got missed or burned out. They couldn't really give me an explanation for it. But parts have been ordered and we should be installing them tomorrow morning. So one last section and hopefully we'll relieve all that headache and issue.
So that's the good news. Our parts are able to be sourced and hopefully completed tomorrow.
That's right. They come in from the States. We've actually ordered a few extra just in case it does happen again. The next picture we're on now. Police chairs, those are our cooling, as you can see. Underneath the stands, it's just basic plywood and wide open spaces. So the further east, so toward the plant room, the closer we sit there, the colder it gets. Those are our 12-inch brine lines that freeze the entire building, or the pad. And that's just what happens, the cold air goes in, runs all the way through the end. There's our 50 years of debris. Lots of cool stuff under there. But as you can see, there's no insulation. So you basically just create an ice cooler that you sit on top of. You get hot air, hopefully melting your head and freezing your feet and your butt from the bottom and below. And just a little bit better picture of that brine tube and how big it is. That was the only thing they couldn't replace when they replaced that system. It was actually metal piping. It's the only section left in that whole system.
That's about it. Any questions?
Mayor Sahara.
So thank you very much for your presentation here today, and thank you for addressing the issue. Obviously, we've had a lot more people sitting in the stands this season, so it was noticeable. I know council's been there quite often this season, so obviously we hear the feedback. I think we need to continue to unfortunately duct tape the system until we have some answers in terms of the new facility. Hopefully that will include arenas, but can't commit to that yet. So until we have a firm direction on what we're doing, just hope that we can keep it operating. I'm glad to see that you guys have ordered some additional parts just in case, so it can be repaired a little bit quicker and hopefully get there and survive for a couple more years.
Councillor Chenard.
Yeah, my comments are the same. I agree. Let's fix it. But we have to remember, even though I complain about the cold, I am going to watch a hockey game. So maybe I should dress up a little warmer because the building is old and I fully agree that it's cold on bottom. I've gone there and I froze. But wear line boots and then warm. So I mean, there's no use in spending a whole bunch of money to try to correct this. Because like we are moving forward and building something new. So I'm pleased that you could repair it, and a little bit of tea is nice. But yeah, you know, we have to keep fixing it temporarily, but it may blow up. So, I mean, you can buy warm boots in town, so we'll support your local business and enjoy the
Councillor Sorensen.
I agree with the previous comments that we should continue to do Band-Aid solutions on this for the heating system until we have a new facility. I would, however, look at possibly some rigid insulation on the floor under the bleachers. I don't know how much that would cost. Maybe that is something we could ask for a quote. I think maybe a couple $1,000 we might be able to insulate that floor, but I could be wrong.
That actually was my question. Is there a cheaper way to insulate?
I don't know, we have to get a quote. My only concern is there's a lot of old electrical cords that run, that are stapled to the bottom of those bleachers. So are we playing with fire?
If I may, I think probably the cheapest option there is blowing in some insulation, and I don't know how effective it would be in that application and or the cost, but it's certainly, we can ask a few questions to gain some more information there.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, again, I was in Medicine Hat at 2 Centennial Arenas, which would of course be the same age as ours. And they were toasty warm, looked like the same type of heaters or something. So I phoned back to the lady just to find out how old they were. She was most helpful. So I'm sure they have suggestions as to what they've done to keep it that warm, because it really was marvelous.
I think if I just may add one more thing, well, I think one of the key elements too is, and this maybe goes a little bit with Councillor Chenard's comment, is managing expectations is really important. And so if we, and I think we're starting to do a little bit better job of being more proactive and letting people know that the heating system doesn't necessarily function optimally. And so if people come in seeing that and understanding that, then it's maybe not as abrupt for them when they have a chillier than expected experience. And so we're trying to do a better job of just communicating that you can expect it to be quite cold, and then in tandem with trying to make sure the system's operating as best as it can. So it's not just the physical management of the situations, it's also the general management of the understanding the expectations there as well. So
Mayor Sahara?
Yeah, just a comment that I'm not in favor of spending any money that we don't need to on this facility. I think the budget commentary was quite clear that until we decide what we're doing there, that we should be operating on a shoestring. That still means that we need to do what we need to do to keep the facility operating. And I think communication's key. If people are aware that the heaters are down and you have something on Facebook, bring your blankets and an extra coat. That goes a long way. And instead of being there and then all of a sudden you're frozen to death. So once again, thank you for addressing this.
And I heard one of our local businesses has beautiful Arrows blankets
That's right.
to keep you warm. Councillor
Through
Wilkinson?
the chair, I think already the publicity is out there through minor hockey that Edson's arenas are freezing, so dress for people know that. It's hard to dress your nose when it freezes. And we also have to remember the rain now is bringing revenue into us as a town. It's also bringing people to our town, which again is advertising Edson. They're buying meals out, they're staying in hotels. We have lots of people coming, like families of the players, etc. Let's sell ourselves, let's have it the best that we can.
Did you need to borrow that nose warmer on Councillor Bevan's?
I might have to, you can actually buy them on
Do we have any other further comments, questions? All right, let's move on. Thank you. Moving on to protective services. So first up, we've got medical response program. Is that Tyler or Mr.? All right. Mr. Robinson, come on up. And Allie, you're coming to you. Oh, support system.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair, Council, Mayor, Mayor and Council. So tonight, just want to give you a bit of an update on the medical first response program that we started back in June, more as a pilot program through Alberta Health Services than anything else. Whoa, Steve, did you do that? Sorry. So just to give you a little bit of a background on our current level of service, it's actually an adopted document from Council, and I think 2013 or 14 is when it came through originally. So some background for some newer Council. Historically, fire departments classified as volunteer like we are could internally or at Council's direction dictate what training they would do, when they would train, how often they would train, right down to the level of PPE. Unfortunately, there was a lot of loopholes, and there weren't a lot of safety standards associated with that. So what happened with the province is in 2008, Alberta OH&S produced a document called the Code of Practice for Firefighters. They updated this in 2012, and most volunteer fire departments in Alberta, Al and I have talked to several through the Alberta Fire Chief Conferences and such, looked at it as unachievable and unrealistic. We pretty much grabbed it and ran with it. It provided us an opportunity to establish, recognize, and accepted level of service in which we could achieve. it became the backbone of the whole fire department, and it drives all of our training directives, guidelines, procedures, and safety standards now. This is Steve. Don't do that anymore. It's working fine.
Just gonna talk to Giles about getting the speeds up in here, I think.
So right now our level of services you can see, and as well as in your packages, we provide 4 core services: firefighting, emergency medical, rescue, and hazardous materials. Each main service has subcategories within them, and each level which we establish what services we provide and how far in depth or what level we establish to train to, such as the NFPA 1001, which is National Fire Protection Association, or it could be a certified training program, or it could be our internal guidelines and operations. So slow. Currently,
I hope your medical response is quicker than your PowerPoints here.
I'll get to that. I brought stats. So we've enhanced our level service in several ways, still keeping within those 4 main core services. The biggest one would be the MFR, the Medical First Response Program, falling under our 2.0, which is the EMS. Since officially beginning this pilot program in June 2018, Edson firefighters have been first on scene to several medical emergencies and actually have the ability to provide life-saving interventions, working closely with EMS staff to ensure quick access to emergency services and the best patient care possible. Right now, how we broke it down in consultation with Alberta Fire Chief and AHS is Edson Fire is automatically dispatched to Echo and Delta call types for EMS, and then we're a 15-minute delay on Charlie's. 15-minute delay not being, it takes us 15 minutes. But if an ambulance is going to be delayed 15 minutes or more, we're an automatic response for those as well to get there a little quicker and have someone in their face, really. Training equipment upgrades continue with strong support from AHS. Additional patient assessment abilities include being able to do pulse oximetry, oxygen saturation testing, blood glucose level, blood pressures, cardiac and lung sound assessments, and further, more than operational level, additional treatment provided by EFD includes defibrillation, advanced airway management through oropharyngeal airways, if anyone knows what that is. Kind of a banana-shaped thing that you put in your mouth and keeps your tongue off the back of the throat so they can breathe again. Oxygen administration, glucose administration for diabetics, and naloxone hydroxide or Narcan admin for severe opiate exposure. That's the ambulance coming. I know, right? So, there have not been, nor there is expected, or there is not expected to be any financial costs in relation to equipment purchases, training, or supplies. It's a partnership program between Town of Edson Protective Services and Alberta Health Services. AHS provides all the training, equipment, and supplies related to medical first response. And as of March 2018, there's 284 Alberta municipalities in this program right now. Wages here is in direct relation to our call volume increase of about 12.5 MFR calls a month, which, you know, the money we pay 4, 5, 6 guys 12 times for an hour equates to less than $800 a month to provide this, which is within our current budget limitations. Limitations is likely that word.
You see how fast I went that time?
That was, yeah. Moving on. So some call stats. The first 5 January to May, you can see our call volumes here. In June and July, June is when we first started the program, and for the first 2 months there was a real significant spike in our call volume, as you can see. This was when we were still working out some kinks with Alberta Health Services. We were going to a lot of Charlie type calls that we honestly had no business going to. Ambulance had it well under control. It wasn't necessary. So through working with our local EMS provider, as well as Alberta Health Services, we've been able to doctor that a little bit and drop the amount of times that we're responding when it's not necessary for us to respond. And so the last 3-4 months have been a little more streamlined, with the exception of this number 31, or 31 calls that month. We essentially had a frequent flyer that we went to about 4 times in a week and a half kind of thing. unfortunately will not be attending to that one anymore. They have since moved on. So some facts and flaws about the program, some facts right now. The facts part of the facts and flaws. Steve, is it gonna go? Oh, there it is. We've had 74 MFR calls over the last 6 months. Edson Fire arrives on scene 47.3% of the time before ambulance. So almost half the time we're there, and sometimes up to 5-10 minutes before ambulance gets there. Again, with the training through Alberta Health Services, we have the medical training and equipment and are able to quickly assess a patient and determine the most appropriate and potentially life-saving treatment. Edson firefighters have literally saved 3 lives since this pilot program's inception, which I'm super proud of. I think it's worth in this room bringing up that one of those people is actually a local paramedic here that suffered a stroke, and Edson Fire was first on scene. The second one of the other ones, was one of our own firefighters' sons. Sorry, I'm emotional about this one, bear with me. His son was in cardiac arrest and his wife was doing CPR when we got there. So that was for sure save on our part. We were there for 4 minutes before EMS arrived. Sorry, I'm not really an emotional guy, but my wife's in the back.
Sometimes
Here, so. And in addition to that, firefighters have assisted EMS and/or performed CPR with local EMS 7 times in the last 6 months, greatly increasing the chances of patient survival and reducing patient loading and transport time. Point 3, with the assistance of firefighters, EMS can do their job, focusing on the life safety stuff like cardiac medications, advanced airway management, things like that. While we can do the remedial, get the stretcher, perform CPR, we can do the oxygen administration, things that they're quite honestly just too busy for. Some flaws about the program is, unfortunately, there's no firm statistic. However, it's estimated that we are only required for assistance 50 to 60% of the time we respond. So we're trying to fix that with AHS and our local provider, obviously. And while in the pilot program phase, we continue to work with local EMS and AHS to limit our stand-down calls. So the intent of the program is to ensure we provide the citizens of the town of Edson with the most appropriate and effective emergency services possible, while ensuring cost-effective and pertinent delivery of those services. Right now, consideration is being given to limiting the Charlie-type calls and exploring a time delay on Delta calls. That would decrease the call volume and move away from going to Charlie-type calls at all, which is generally like a severe bleed or a...
If I may just suggest, do you mind just kind of talking a little bit about the
I'm
call
sorry.
designations?
Yeah.
Because
Charlie and Delta, no?
Yeah, EMS call types are divided into 5 calls, ranging from Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Echo is unconscious, not breathing, no pulse, active code, we gotta act now kind of thing. Delta is unconsciousness, anything to do with the level of consciousness, airway, breathing, circulation, chest pain, stroke, things like that, where it's imminently life dangerous, life safety if it's not responded to. And then Charlie calls is you got a bit, but you're in rough shape, kind of heavy bleeding, concussion, head injury, spinal injury, things like that. So that's the breakdown of it. Thank you very much. So I guess the reason with Council's approval, our goal is to move forward from a pilot program phase and permanently incorporate the MFR program into our level of service document. In the new year, Protective Services would like to bring forward an updated level of service document for approval, increasing public safety in our community. And there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mayor Sahara.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and certainly worthwhile program in our community. And it goes to show how many calls you go to that EMS is a little bit slower to respond in these types of situations. Sometimes those minutes matter, right? So thank you for the presentation. I will say though that I am concerned that we put this program in place before council gave you the go-ahead. I would certainly hope, because there is a budgetary component to this, that even if it's a pilot program, that we're in the loop and we give the green light. Otherwise, now we're somewhat committed to moving forward with this program, and I certainly like to be more informed off the get-go than after the fact. But I do see a value here, and I think that if you are working with AHS and the local EMS service to reduce some of those calls that are not necessary, I think you certainly have a lot of my support behind that. So thank you.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair, excellent presentation. I wish I would have seen it before the budget discussions, because I would have been a much bigger advocate for the program if I had seen this earlier. I think the stats speak for themselves. In 6 months, saving 3 lives and being first on the scene for almost 50% of the calls is and for the small budget, it's a tremendous value, and I have my full support for the program. And I do appreciate the efforts you've made to streamline and avoid unnecessary call-outs. That's noticeable. Thank you.
Councillor Sorensen? Or, shoot, no. That's my first time.
I'm going to make a nasty comment because Sorensen made it. Thank you for the presentation. Now, where it says approximate cost, we're looking at $10,000 a year extra cost than what we're paying right now. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, through Councillor Chenard, that is correct. Through my understanding, that is within our current budgetary. Yes.
That is, if I may, that is reflected in the budget that council just passed last week, is an additional $10,000 to support this program.
So we actually had it in the budget, and I also feel very strongly because, I mean, we're in a small town. We only have so much ambulance service. We are on Highway 16, so at any given time, the ambulances can be 5-10 minutes away. So with the value of the fire department and the training, timing is very important. So I mean, I'm pleased that you said, you know, that you save three lives, but a lot of times you can also save people from injury, whatever it is. So I didn't understand the Charlie calls and also like that, but I believe with the training that yes, we should make, be able to use our fire department more than just fires. It's very, very valuable to our community, and that's what I was pointing out. It was 10, but we had it in the budget, so I'm in favor. Yes, we need to move forward with this. This cost is very valuable to our community.
Councillor Byer?
Through the chair to Tyler, thank you for the presentation. So I really appreciate some of the stats that you put out on safety, the additional training that has been required. I know on Facebook, I also followed the Edson Fire Department Facebook, and I found it very valuable to see, just pictures of what does training look like, right? I know a lot of people who are on the fire department, but not necessarily understanding what that looks like. So I certainly appreciate that. I do have a couple questions though. One was the first one is, out of the 284 Alberta municipalities, how many of those are towns and counties? Do you have a rough?
Through the chair, I actually can't answer that, how many are towns and counties. It wasn't broken down on the AHS website,
Okay.
so I don't have access to that stat.
Okay. And
If I may, I just certainly most small community fire departments participate in this program because they don't always have ambulance service even located in their communities. I think we're fortunate to have an ambulance base located in our community, but many communities our size and smaller are half an hour, 45 or even more minutes away from an ambulance service, and they rely even more on their volunteer fire departments to provide this service. It's not just the small communities. The city fire departments are actually responding far more to medical calls. They have trained paramedics on their fire departments and are acting most often in a medical response program. And Chief Robinson, I don't know if you would like to add anything to that, but an integrated response for emergency services is the most effective model.
okay. Another question through the chair. So can you fill me in on how the dispatching works with EMS and fire department? Or is it something that's centered at the same time? What does that look like?
I can, Madam Chair. So we all know we have Yellowhead Regional 911 operating out of here. So currently, all 911 calls in the area go to our dispatch center. If it's deemed to be a medical call, it's forwarded to NCC, which is Northern Communications Center for the ambulance. Okay, so different dispatch center is forwarded automatically. Okay. As soon as that EMS dispatch system or service gets either a 15-minute Charlie delay or a Delta Echo confirmation through their caller interrogation, we're automatically paged out again through Yellowhead. So we're paged at the same time the ambulance is for the Deltas and Echoes. It's just for Yellowhead 911 doesn't do EMS dispatching. They do just the fire and peace officers.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
And one more, if that's all right. So you said in the past 4 months you've kind of streamlined the service a little bit. Has that stat changed? I think it was the 40. You said that the fire department arrived on scene 47% more, ahead of the ambulance. Is that reflective? Is that the 6-month average, or is that the 4-month average after you kind of tweaked the system a little bit?
That is a 6-month average.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for being so quick.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, thanks very much for just a great presentation. I enjoyed it. I really do appreciate the fact that you're looking into how you can do better, that you're not responding to the same calls other people are at. Just a question, like, why are you quicker than the ambulances? Is it that the ambulances are too busy, or it just surprises me that you're ahead of them when we have them based in town?
Yeah, I can address that. There's probably a couple things. The ambulances are quite busy. We only have one day ambulance, one night ambulance, and a transfer ambulance. So when the day ambulance is out, it's the night crew that has to come in. If they're out, it's the transfer crew that has to come in from home. So that's one reason. If the ambulance is just on a call or at the hospital, they have our delays at the Edson hospital, not similar to Edson delays or Edmonton delays, but they're still a good half hour, 45 minutes at the hospital before they can be released again. And quite honestly, the other reason is 8 to 4 Monday to Friday. I'm an EMT as well, and I hop in my truck and I can get out faster than a 2-man crew from ambulance.
Thanks for all that information. Just one more question. Are you having any trouble getting volunteers in your fire department?
Madam Chair, no. To be honest, Friday I got another application with a trained firefighter coming from another area, and Sunday I got another application through email. Just this weekend I got 2 experienced people wanting to get on. So
Well,
we're
honestly,
not having any
congratulations to
issue.
you.
Thank
You're
you
doing
very
something
much.
right. Definitely in order that people want to work there. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
I think it's since they shaved off their mustaches here, and then now the applicants are rolling in. So.
But I just noticed this one hasn't
Yeah. Councillor Shenard.
Through the chair, the 911, that's concerning. Why do we get a ricochet back and forth? Is there any way we can change that so when you call 911, it's for fire, police, and ambulance?
So, Madam Chair, through Councillor Schneider, it is. When you call 911, it's for fire, police, or ambulance.
Okay.
So as soon as they start their caller interrogation and they know it's a police emergency, they forward that information on to, like, through their high-tech stuff. And it's a seamless transition where both dispatchers
Sorry.
are basically on the same screen and on the same page, and the caller is never interrupted. You're on the same line with them all the time. It's just the communications between different dispatch centers is happening.
Okay, I just wanted to
The experience of
Right.
the caller is that they're speaking to one
Correct.
Right, because
person.
that was my thing. I thought, wait a minute. So then, so when they call 911 for an emergency, they can
One-stop
call for
shopping.
all 3, and they're not interrupted, and it's the person sitting at the desk.
Correct.
The person calling doesn't know it's sent. Okay. I just want clarification. I thought, wait a minute, this isn't making sense to me.
Mayor Sahar?
Through the chair, through to Al and Chief Robinson. I know that our EMS historically has done a lot of transfers, specifically from Jasper to Edmonton. Is that causing some issues as well in terms of response times?
Yes. Next question.
I think what Chief Robinson is suggesting is that perhaps it would be worthwhile for Mr. Schramm to invite EMS to come in and give their perspective on this as well, and I think we can certainly facilitate that, Al, or Chief Robinson.
Yeah, and currently what they're doing is they'll backfill. Like if we're out on a transfer, we'll get a Hinton car on the way to halfway to Edson kind of thing for a response, so it does cut the time in half. Same thing with Whitecourt. They'll backfill different stations because it's all provincial ground ambulance now, right? It's not us and them in different towns. It's all run. So they backfill and they seem to be doing their best. Again, just there's only so many ambulances in the province, and especially the region.
It's just a fall. That's just my concern. Is I know that other communities, we're very fortunate. We have great crews and great. We've got a great base here, but we just seen the provincial announcement that they're buying a whole bunch of ambulances and trying to address some of those concerns. My big concern is all of a sudden the fire department starts replacing EMS because we don't have EMS in place, and we need to keep an eye on that to ensure that the provincial government's holding out their end of the responsibility, because we see that over and over again. No, we have great response times. Yeah, it's the Edson Fire Department responding to those calls, not the local EMS crews, because they're tied up doing transfers or whatever. So.
Right, Councillor Sorensen.
I think I asked this before, and I can't remember the answer. Did the Yellowhead County continue, or are they using the medical first response program as well?
They've downgraded as well to calls and as well as to travel distances. So they are using a form of it, not to the extent as we are anymore.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Why, I get a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna wait patiently my turn here. Thank you very much. The presentation is great. I really appreciate the statistics. And that was my concern with the, when we were having the budget deliberations. My concern was just ensuring that we were going to things that we needed to and that we weren't going to things that weren't necessary. So I'm really happy to see that that is being tracked and that they're seeing that and kind of figuring that out and getting that it's a pilot. So just would like to continue to see this kind of stats, just to show the benefits of it. But thank you very much. We are fortunate.
40 volunteers that don't want to get up at 2 a.m. any more than anyone else does.
Right.
So
Perfect.
we're keeping track of those.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and next up, the draft road closure policy. Mr. Schramm, that's you.
So basically what we've done is we want to come up with a system to kind of address temporary road closures and more for special events. And it really affects, in my opinion, two kind of user groups within our community, which is the Legion when they do their parades, and also the Chamber when they do their Santa Claus parade or other functions inside our Jamboree. In the past, we've asked these people that come in with just a letter at the last minute and kind of submitted it, and then from administratively, we've tried to fan out to make sure that we've contacted everybody who it affects. So we kind of went with the philosophy, let's create a temporary road closure and usage policy, kind of streamline that process so we don't miss something. I'll give you an example. When the Remembrance Day parade happens, it's November, weather conditions can change. If our operations department is aware of it, it's planned, they get their approval, they know if they have to get out there and do some street cleaning or whatever for them. It's just a way to kind of streamline that whole process. Protective Services will kind of take over the administration of that. So any event that's less than 1 day, Protective Services Department, we'd kind of just approve those right up front. Make sure we let the RCMP know operations and all the affected users know what's going on. And then the next thing, any event that's going to run over a day, we'd kind of add that to the CEO. And then any larger event, which we've identified like a 6 day or longer, we'd come to council for their approvals. It's just streamline the process, create some consistency for our residents and even for internally, so we make sure that we communicate the information out to the appropriate departments and agencies that need to know if there's going to be an event happening.
Perhaps, if I may, Madam Chair, just before council, I would just add to that, Al and I have already had a few conversations as we've kind of thought about this a little bit about considering simplifying the process even more at the the 1 day event, the kind of Legion parade level. Right now the policy reads that they would fill out this application and give several weeks notice and that type of thing, and I think we could probably consider scaling that back at that type of event. The Legion's practice is generally 1 or 2 days before they show up and hand a letter and say, hey, we're doing our parade, and I certainly don't want to create a policy that we're just going to ignore or not follow. And also the intent of this is to provide the appropriate oversight to ultimately protect public safety. That is the reason that we feel this is important, but we don't want to create some kind of unnecessary bureaucratic process of applications and reviews for what we would consider relatively minor events like the Legion Parade or the soapbox, 1 day soapbox derby kind of kind of thing. And so you may see, as this policy is considered or brought back for future consideration, some adjustments based on the intensity of the event to alleviate some of that kind of administrative part of the process.
Thank you. Councillor Byer?
Through the chair to Al, thank you for this, and thank you to CEO Derek Hott for addressing that. That was one of my questions about the timeline of that. Another question I had, though, was I was kind of shocked to see it on there. How many 6-day events do we have that we have closed the roads in the past?
I
I
don't recall any, but not to say that they can't happen. I think the longest we run right now is the Downtown Festival, which runs about 4 days by the time they close it. But not to say that those festivals can't be extended. We just wanted to create a system where put the burden of a lot of the stuff, on administration and CAO before burdening council with having to make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair to administration, I have 2 comments. One pertains to what you were talking about before in terms of who does the approval. I do support the way it is currently. For under 1-day event, it's just administrative staff. If it's a 2-day event, it goes to CAO, and if it's over that, it goes to council. I support that kind of philosophy. I do think, though, that if it's going to come to council, just the application can't get approved in 2 weeks. So if it's a summer, we may not meet that in time for that. So perhaps anything over 24 hours, we might need a whole month to process an application. Just in terms of when council can get together and actually vote on something. And then my second point was that the last, I think it's the last bullet here, event applications are responsible for securing and obtaining their own barricades. I disagree with that. I think the barricades should have a Town of Edson logo on them. I think they should have a sign that actually says this is enforceable by bylaw 123. Because if I saw a rotary barricade, I might ignore it and just drive right around it. So I think our public needs to know that this is an official barricade that is enforceable and that they need to listen to it. And if those barricades are controlled by the town, then we know when they're going out and we know when we're coming in. So it's another way for administration to control how long the event lasts for.
If I may.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Yep.
Chair. Our intent was to actually have this, and maybe we need to fix the wording up, that the intent is the operations department would provide the barricades. We want the event application to make sure that they contact them. Maybe we can fix the wording up to reflect that.
Yeah, I think availability is part of that. I think it's actually community services that has a number of barricades for events, but we don't have an unlimited amount, right. and they do cost money, and so we can't just have an entire, enormous pile of barricades sitting around. And so but I do think there is some validity in the comment of the official nature of those barricades, and so we generally do provide some barricades. But if there was multiple events at the same time and the barricades we don't have any, I think we do need to make sure that there is some responsibility on the events that they may need to provide barricades and traffic control in those circumstances. I think that's rare, and for the most part we're able to support the community events that take place, but it's possible that that may just extend beyond currently what we have in place for barricades. And I'm sorry, and just in response to your first point on the timing, that is one of the key reasons why this policy is being brought forth. What was regularly happening is someone was coming within the 2-week break of council and saying, the Legion, for example, in 10 days we have our parade, can we have approval? And council, we just didn't have a council meeting, and so it was just causing a little bit of awkwardness in terms of the process. And so that is one of the main issues that we're working to address there.
Thank you. Councillor Schreier?
Thank you for bringing up the barricades, because I had a question on that too. But the application is good, and I have to agree with the comments that we no longer, because there's some things that just run regularly and you forget. I have forgot. Oh no, I forgot. But a lot of times then, if it's a regular event, like we said, the Legion's Remembrance Day, if the bylaw is there, then your departments, you may call them and say, hey guys, just a reminder. So I do like the policy, and I have to agree that way it's handled here. And I also like the fact, if there was a 6-day event, it may, it hasn't happened, doesn't mean it's never gonna happen, because even during the sidewalk jamboree, sometime it is 5 days because they start bringing in stuff to set up. So I really like this, I'm highly supportive of it. It's something that we should have did years ago, because the people applying still have to do the same application, but we don't have to involve council in order for Remembrance Day Parade to take place.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, one quick question. With any block parties, do people actually block off a block?
Block parties are covered under another policy through community services. And we've seen last summer, we've had one, I believe, and they actually didn't block the street off. They kind of did it as the lawns, but they have that ability.
Okay, and they have to look after getting the barricades then? The people who are putting on the block party?
No, community services does provide a number of supports for the block party program, including barricades if they need them.
Thank you.
They're in the trailer
Mhm.
that you get.
Yeah.
Councillor Weir?
Through the chair to Al, I have one more question here that came up through the discussion. Does this apply at all to groups that, so I'll use an example with the Canets with their toy run, they kind of go around town with the motorcycles and have individual people with stop signs and just allow the parade to proceed. Does that apply at all to this type of?
I would suggest that it would. If they're going to have impacts again on public safety and potential road closures, it gives gives the other agencies like the RCP that know that this is going to be happening. That there's no fee on this either, so it's just a matter of doing the paperwork. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I may, I would just add to that, the main focus of this is where there's actually going to be road closures, but I think there's certainly no problem with those groups following the process and notifying and that type of thing. So, and we could proactively invite a group if we felt like the impact was high enough to say, hey, in the future, if you're going to hold this event, we ask that you adhere to this, just in the interest of public safety, as Al mentioned.
For sure. Thank you.
I just had a few comments. My concerns have almost all been addressed, and it was really just along the lines of the 14 days with the applicants, and just if there is some restructuring, rewording we could do around that, just especially with those things that are under a day, that have really low impact. So just, I guess my general comment would be I would like a little more flexibility. So I understand needing to have it in there, but I also want some flexibility, knowing we'll have some growing pains as we do.
I think the best way to do that is to kind of tier it based on events. If it's in category A, which is minimal impact, 1 day, we only need 2 or 3 days notice, or a week, or whatever we feel is 5 business days, whatever we feel is appropriate. If it's in category B, it's 14. If it's in category C, it's a month. And I think that's something that we can definitely work in there.
I like that idea of the tiers. All right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on it? Comments?
The only thing that I'd like to add through the chair is our portable signage. Like in some case where you're barricading, if we could make access to barricades as well as portable signage to warn people ahead. Because I know for myself, you go through the barricades when doing soapbox derby and someone gets all the way down and they got a tractor trailer unit and they're not very happy. So that, if we can make use of them as well.
If I may, I think I would just leave that completely at the discretion of the town, based on what we may or may not be using the portable signs for at any given time and the nature of the event.
Good. Do you have enough from us?
Good feedback there
Absolutely.
to move this forward. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, we have no information items or sundries, so we are moving to questions from the media and public regarding items from this committee of the whole. Anybody? The public?
I don't think any of
Do
these
you guys
people
have
qualify
anything
as
for
public.
us? Anyone in the public?
She'll be back next year to question.
All right. Quickly, before we adjourn, we have something else to do.
Carry on.
Mayor Sahara.
Yes, so in the gallery today, she will be a member of the general public here very, very soon. Right now, she is an integral part of our organization for another 48 hours or so. I'm talking about Miss Bridget Lemieux. She's our assistant CAO and HR director, and I've had the incredible privilege and honor of knowing Bridget for the last 12 years. When I first got elected to council, we didn't know each other, and I quickly found out she doesn't hold back what she's thinking and puts you in your spot when you need to be put in your spot, but has provided incredible service to this community for 29 years. And on behalf of our council, I'd just like to thank you for your tremendous service to our community. On behalf of the taxpayers of Edson, I want to thank you for tremendous service to our community. You are going to be greatly missed. She doesn't like to be in the limelight and all that too, so.
Make sure she comes so
Make sure
she's
the
on camera.
So, if you want to look that way in front of the camera.
There's cameras everywhere.
So thank you very much for your service, and I really hope you enjoy your retirement. And yeah, so this is on behalf of council. Thank you very much for your service to our community.
That's 29 years or plus 1 year of Mike's life.
I think when you started with the town, Mr. Dericotte was still in diapers.
Close.
I can just comment, Bridget, I've been dealing with you for those 29 years, and I honestly, sincerely say that it has been a pleasure, and I would comment there's some time that I asked you a question, I did not like the answer, but thank you for giving me an answer.
Thank you. All right, and now moving on. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I would do a motion to-
Councillor Chouinard.
Surprise.
All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.